In 2022, she caught pickleball fever. She is a pickleball cowboy. She can take you to 11-0 faster than you can say pickled. She is Camila Zilveti. This is the Pickle with Mickle Interview Series. 0-0 start. Camila, and I hope I say your name right. Is it Camila or Camilla?
Camila.
Camila, perfect. I am so excited to have you on my virtual court with me today. I've just got to ask you, how are you doing on this day after Labor Day?
I'm doing great. I am really excited to be here talking to you today.
Fantastic. Now, you were just in Vegas, right? Camila Zilveti, did I say that right as well?
Yes.
Perfect. Pickleball pro, avid world traveler. We're going to get to all of that here today. You've got an exciting background, and that's really what made me reach out to you. I saw some of, I think, your travel posts out just on social media, and then, of course, your feed was coming to me because of pickleball, and I'm like, wow, this girl is doing some cool stuff. I got to see if she'll come talk to me, and here we are. You already explained it to me, but explain for the people all the paddles there in the background. We're here in kind of your pickleball office. Is this in direct relation to Pickleball Cowboy or some of that other stuff, or just kind of the pickle zone for you?
This is just our pickle zone. This is basically our guest room office, and we were thinking, what can we put like as a piece of art? And then we hung up a handful of them, and we were like, this looks pretty sick. And then we just have a lot of paddles. Like most of them are either broken or like demos. Like half of them, I mean, this one is one that my fiance like handmade, you know, like they're not playable paddles. You can see some with like Sharpies.
Yeah.
We got in Macau. So they're all really just like demo paddles, fun paddles, delaminated paddles, and we figured we have a bunch of them. Let's just throw them on a wall, and you know, makes it for visually pretty sick. Even that one, I don't know if you can see. This is one of like the original. It's like a longer handle one.
I can see it.
People used to play singles with. It's like what the national champion like back like 4 years ago played with, like, which is crazy to think that.
Yeah.
No, I mean paddles, but super cool, and we love collecting them.
Absolutely. No, I think it's great. I think it adds a nice little touch right there. And I mean, you mentioned your fiance, so that's a great place to start. You started playing pickleball there in Austin only 2 years ago. And it just so happens you fell in love with the game, but you found another love out there too. You want to talk about it?
I did. So there's a bunch of courts out in Austin. There used to be very few courts, and there were some out in the east side, and there's like grimy place where it's like next to this venue, let's call it, that could be rented out, and very questionable events happened there. Like every time we would be out there playing pickleball, we're like, is this the time we get shot? Like maybe, you know, like we were actually there once during a shooting. Like it was like Austin's super safe, but then like just specifically that neighborhood is just like not super safe.
I'm starting to pick up. I think I'm picking up. There's East Side, West Side, Austin. Is this like East Side, West Side, LA? I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's safe, but it's by Austin standards, it's not safe. And anyways, I was just out there playing. Like the courts are super bad, like they're super slippery. And I met Brian there, and I had like a nice little wooden paddle, and I didn't know anything about pickleball. And then he played college tennis. I played a lot of like higher level tennis. I only did high school tennis. I only was a doubles player, so the whole singles thing was like, not for me in tennis. No one cared for doubles tennis. And then we started dating, and then we were just both really, really into pickleball, and we played a PPA 3-0 tournament 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I was like, this is fun. I mean, I won. It was 3-0, so I ended up winning. And people were like, hey, I think you're in the wrong category. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't, like, you know, I was like, I showed up with like a Z5 paddle, which, you know, it's a beginner paddle. So I obviously didn't know what I was doing. It was my first time even playing like singles. And people were like, hey, you should play up, you know. And then so we started playing up. And then progressively we started playing in pro. And we have been dating. We travel a lot. And for context on Brian, my fiance, So he's retired. He did a Fnatic company, which is like an esports company, and then crypto. So he has a lot of time. So which for
Okay.
pickleball is like the key is that you need time if you want to go pro, and you don't like, especially back like 2 years ago, like you just needed, like, no one was making money 2 years ago basically. So if you wanted to be playing pro pickleball, you kind of needed time and money to like be able to do that. So
Right.
that has been like nice to have someone that can like do that with me.
Oh,
And
I
yeah, we
think,
both love it. Like we play rec games. We play out at the park like every single week. Yeah, we're big into it.
I mean, Love and Pickleball, right? That could be a Netflix thing. We could get this ready for Prime. They did Love and Basketball. Love and Pickleball with Camila and Brian's going to blow it away. I can see it already. But we'll get back to where we are here. So we're home in Austin. Pickle scene in Austin is pretty good. It's getting better. Now, is this a touch and go? Are you heading to Atlanta? What's the next tour stop for you?
Yeah, I am heading to Atlanta next week. I think, yeah, next week.
Yeah.
So this week, I usually like the week after, depending on how long I have between tournaments. I usually the first 5 days end up just, I don't know, playing golf, playing padel, playing everything else, just to like, I don't know, re-feel the love. Like I love tournaments and I love pickleball, but I never want it to. Even though it kind of is a job now, but I
Hmm.
don't want it to ever feel like a job. Like I really just want to do it because I love it.
Yeah.
And that's like the number one thing for me, where it's like I'm not in it for any sort of money or whatever. It's like I'm there to have fun, make friends, hit a tweeners. Like ideally I win, but everybody's there to
Sure.
win. So
Well,
it's yeah. So
I
I'm
think I
just
like the
curious
way
to
you,
see.
I think I like the way that you phrase that, Camilla, and I love the passion that you talk about it with. You're doing something that you really like. You're able to do it. You put effort into it, and I think that's great. You mentioned making the connections, and the Pickleverse is amazing. All right, here we are talking to each other only because of pickleball. And anyone that
Yeah,
comes on to my little show here, it's all because we meet playing pickleball. I met a guy playing pickleball. His wife owns a shoe store here in downtown Chandler. Exo facto, hey, let's talk about it. And she's got a brand new pickleball shoe that came in this summer, from Olakai. And it's just like it all kind of comes together. And so let's talk about Vegas Cup. It was out there at the Fontainebleau. They put some courts in there. But more, I want to hear about tournament preparation and kind of what you go through there, because certainly playing is fun. We've got to
yeah.
practice. We're going to get to some of that regimen, and maybe you can give the listeners some good tips to keep your game sharp. But tournament prep, getting your mind right, because you do want to go out and win.
So for tournament prep, one, it really depends who you're playing with. So is it someone that you've partnered up with in the past? Or no, because if it's a new partnership, my biggest thing, like basically for all players, is they go out there and they're like, we need a handful of rec games, because there's just those weird middle balls that you just need to know, is that you, is that me, that weird like partnership dynamic. So it really depends, because you see pros, they're switching up partners all the time. Like how does that
Yeah.
really work? It's
How
hard,
does
like it's
that
really
work?
hard.
That's my question.
No,
I
like it's really hard. And when I play with my fiance Brian, I for sure play better than when I play with someone else,
Mhm.
because we just play so much together that I just like, he knows what I'm about to hit before I know that I'm about to hit it, and it's ginormously helpful. Versus obviously if you show up to a PPA and it's a new partnership, you never know. So most people, I would say, partner up either for a handful of tournaments. So like the last like 4 tournaments I played with Ignatowicz, and so it's like the first one I was like a little bit of like, is that your ball? Is that my ball? And by now we've just played so many tournaments together that I'm like, I know exactly what she's capable of. I know what she's speeding up. I know what she's defending. I know
Yeah.
what ball she's like, what she prefers. And it's just one of those things where, to get ready for it, if you haven't played with the person, all you want is rec games.
Hmm.
And then depending on the venue, you just want to get reps in terms of just touches. Sometimes they don't really have the most amount like empty courts. At
Yeah.
the Vegas tournament, they had a lot of empty courts, which was awesome. So like getting an actual warm up in was good, because sometimes you show up and you're there for 2 hours and you're not able to really get a court, and
You
that's the
can't
most
even hit,
stressful.
right? I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like you were out here just like 10 minutes before your match, and you're like, I haven't hit a single pickleball. Like this is, I'm about to get blasted. But then the hope is that your opponents had the same situation and they probably also didn't get as much of a warm up as they should.
You hope so.
But to really just get a good warm up in. And then for me specifically, I like just some sort of like routine, like I like to have something in my stomach, so either banana, something small from Starbucks, even though, like, don't necessarily love Starbucks, but I just like that it's always the same consistency of it,
Right.
which on a tournament day, I don't want to, like, mess with anything, like, funky with, like, eating-wise.
No deviations, right? You've got that
Yeah, so just
routine.
really,
Even if it's a banana bread from Starbucks, damn it, I'm gonna have it because this is
yeah,
what I do.
yeah. But you're just getting, and it's been nice because the women's brackets usually start. I'm not a morning person, and the women's brackets start, I think, 10 a.m. at the earliest, which is a very, very civilized, reasonable time.
Absolutely.
So for me, yeah. So for me, like the whole like anytime Brian plays, he sometimes has like the men's brackets, which like sometimes they start at 8 a.m. And if I get stuck having to like go watch him, like the prep is more just like being able to fall asleep on time
Okay.
rather than like it's more just like, can we get to bed as soon as possible and like actually fall asleep. Versus for the women's brackets, at least that hasn't been like an obstacle for me since they start them late enough.
Right. And
But
then so you
yeah, so
mentioned you've been playing with Ava and you guys are kind of getting that dynamic, that partnership. Will you continue to play with her for the rest of the year? Is that something you guys look to extend possibly into next year?
I've already committed to other partners for the rest of the year, so we'll
Okay.
probably look at the schedule again next year. I got my partnerships out pretty early, so the next two tournaments I'm playing with Maddie Schulte.
Okay.
I played two earlier this year, and I really liked how it went. So we booked two more, and then I'm going to play one tournament with Jeannie Bouchard, which I've not played with her. So let's see how that goes, and if it goes
Yeah.
well, maybe we'll book another one for next year.
Okay. Now, will you play mixed with Brian or will he be coming with you or how does that work too?
So we uh, a mix of both. This at the start of the year, I played a handful of them with him. We get put in qualies, and qualies are tough these days. And if I
You're
play with
telling
the
me
same
they are.
players,
There's like 30,000 people out there trying to make it.
30,000 people, and for 8 spots, and all of them are still medaling. They just don't have necessarily a contract, and it's tough. So if it's a smaller tournament, so for example, we played Minnesota together, and
Okay.
we got into main draw because I have enough points. We played, what are the ones that we played? We played LA together. But it really kind of depends if it, like, it's nice because I don't have any pressure in terms of finding a mixed partner. So
Okay.
I text the player liaisons and I'm like, hey, do you have any good options? And like, I have a very specific like game style that I like. Like I like a fast game style, like quick attack, aggressive, like more just a guy that plays singles. And so if I don't have an option of someone where I'm like, oh yeah, this might be a good, like, down to try it out. I have Brian, so it's like it's super easy for me to be able to say no to people if I'm not like thrilled about it, which is as like looking for partners, incredibly helpful not to have like a, ooh, if I say no, will I be able to find a partner? Because you
Right.
have to have a partner. So having that little bit of like left off pressure. So for the rest of the year, I think I might play with him Vegas. I haven't. I like playing with Brian, and it's more just like, does he want to play this tournament or not?
Okay.
So we'll see. Yeah, but
In
that's,
Atlanta, who are you signed up to play with in mixed?
I'm playing with Gabe Joseph. So I played with him also in Vegas. I
Okay.
love playing with him.
All
He's
right.
an incredible singles guy. We played one back in March, and I absolutely loved it. Like really good energy.
Okay.
He's just so good and so fast at singles, and just like I don't know. I just it worked really well for my like what I wanted in a mixed partner.
Perfect.
But he only does progressive draws for mixed because he's more of a singles guy. I don't think he really cares too much for the regular
Sitting
draws
around all
to have to
day.
like stay an extra day. But he's already there because he's already winning in singles, so he's like, yeah, for sure I'll play mixed, you know. So
Okay.
I only play with
Great.
him if it's like a progressive draw.
Very cool. Very cool. Camila Zilveti joining me on the Court Pickle with Mickle interview series. Happy to have you here. Are you going to come out here for nationals in Mesa, I think in November? Or is that on the radar?
Mesa, Dallas, no,
Dallas was last year
or Dallas, the PPA, or
for nationals, US Open nationals. It's going to be out here at
oh
the
no,
Arizona Athletic
I think
Grounds.
most PPA players can't play it.
Oh, really? I wasn't sure if that was
Yeah,
a cutoff for PPA. Is that something new? Because
yeah.
I thought they were able to play in that before.
I think people had specific carve outs in their contract to play it
Okay.
previously,
Okay.
or anybody that will have like a specific contract carve out that they've
Okay.
like negotiated
That
with
would
everybody.
allow you to
Um,
then go to. So let's talk about that a little bit, right? And so, as much as you can, and I don't need to know about dollars. Eventually, we're going to know what players make. We don't know so much now. We know there's a lot of money floating around pickleball, but I think it's interesting when you mentioned contract carve out. You play PPA predominantly. So do you have any flexibility carve out in your contract that you could play APP, or is it all PPA?
So basically the biggest thing by anyone having a contract with PPA is that they don't want you playing APPs.
Right.
That's like the
I see
that's the
players
only.
playing both all the time.
Then they're not signed players.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so non-signed players can play anything they want. But then you will see players like Kate Fahey, who just is out here destroying everybody, and
Yeah.
she gets put in qualies for mix because she doesn't have a contract.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
she
So,
is
the way
rolling
the
in
seating works
singles.
is based off of like, do you have a contract with PPA? Yes, and then afterwards they do points.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And so then does that affect possibly at all people switching partners tournament to tournament like we were talking about, or is that more a function of I'm actually not going to be at that tournament, you're going to need to get somebody else, or because like we just talked about a little bit ago, I think it would make sense if you find that partner that you're grooving with, you want to stay with them and see if we can start dominating
Oh,
and make
absolutely.
some runs.
Yeah, I would say most players that I partner up, I mean, I would say most people are signed with PPA, and that I also mean like MLP PPA like as one. They're signed with like UPA.
Yeah.
So if they are, then
Well, CJ
I
Klinger
mean
just
that's
played in an
they have.
APP event and he's signed with MLP and PPA. And so how does that work?
Is he signed with PPA or is he signed on a team for MLP?
Oh, okay. So you could be signed to a
Yeah.
team with MLP, but not have to be contractually bound to
Yeah.
PPA. Okay.
So,
All
for
right.
example, Kate Fahey, she's not signed with PPA.
But she plays MLP.
I think she originally signed with a PPA. I think she took the buyout or whatever, and
Okay.
then which kind of frees her up. But then she got drafted onto an MLP team.
Yeah.
So she's just like only hired by MLP, the
Okay.
specific team. So technically, not even the league. I think the team that I'm not exactly sure how that works.
Okay. So there's still a lot of
Yeah.
moving pieces out there that's kind of confusing. And that's why it's good to
Yeah,
have.
and it's also crazy because every player has a completely different contract. So some
Right.
players have to do 26 tournaments a year. Other players have to do
Ooh.
22. Others 16. Others 18. Others have to do clinics. Others have to do
Gotcha.
community service. Others have to do
Yep. So
anything
there's
and
a part
everything.
of that, right? Part of in that contract says, let's just arbitrary
Yeah.
number, got to play 20 tournaments. Also, I need to do X amount of clinics. I'm going to do one in Vegas, one in Atlanta, one in Minnesota. Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, hey, real sports contract, real commitments, got to promote the brand of PPA,
Yeah.
MLP, if maybe you're signed there. Let's talk a little MLP. Is that on your radar? Do you think that's fun? Would you like to get into MLP?
I would love to. I'm at like that weird little cusp where I'm like, I'm so close, and then they got rid of a handful of teams, and then there was like a lot less players. I think I'm close. I'm getting there. I just need a handful of big wins. MLP is also somewhat strange, where you kind of gotta know someone that's
Okay.
like the GM because that's
Yeah.
who drafts you, and
Right.
if you don't know a GM, good luck getting drafted. Unless like you're really out here just making waves and like winning. So,
I,
someone has to like take a leap of faith and like kind of contract you. So
Well, and I think that's interesting too, because you hear as you're watching MLP on TV and you look at some of these teams, and I love it. I love the team aspect because, again, as a
yeah,
sports guy, it's easy to make like villains on one side, even if you're cheering for them in the next tournament. Hey, when it's team time, let's get going. And so I appreciate you kind of putting a little color on that. And I mean, I think for pickleball, that's a good place for it to continue to draw people into the sport is that team aspect, and because people can gravitate to teams. And back to you hear a lot when you listen that, Anna Lee put this team together. Anna Bright had a lot of influence on this team. And so if to your point, if you're making the right connects and some people, your game's coming up, it sounds like that's the best way to get tagged and get into the fold in MLP.
yeah,
And it would make sense because there's still the ability for maybe a team owner to say, we want to have that person play with us. They don't have to be signed in maybe PPA. They can get signed directly to an MLP team for a shot.
Yeah, I mean, for example, a player like Lane, nobody knew who she was, and she got drafted, and everyone was like, "Who is this?" And she's
Mhm.
done phenomenally. But like, she still had to have one person kind of, let's call it, believe in her from the start and be like,
Yeah.
"You're good enough," like you're gonna get there, even if it takes a few reps. My biggest, I guess, complaint as a fan watching MLP is how often they change players. Where at first they draft a bunch of players, create all of this like hype over these teams, and then two
It's not
tournaments
the
in,
same
they're
team.
out here with completely different teams. And like, I mean, sure, I know the players.
Mid-season,
Like my
it's a whole new team to finish it off. I hear you, and that's where I hope they could try to
yes,
get it better and get a little
yeah,
more cohesiveness. Where if I own, let's say I own the Arizona Drive, because here I am in Arizona, and
yeah,
Fitzgerald and Phelps, if you're listening to me, we could work together. I'm all for it. And I want to build that team, and I want to keep my team for the next season, and then maybe draft an up and comer. And so I think
yeah.
there's some changes they can make in that team game to make it a little better. Because I do agree with you there. I'm starting to get hyped and follow this one team. I'm like, well, where'd they go? Oh, they play for the
Yeah.
Bouncers now.
And
When
then
they were
half of their, I mean, I think it was what the Bay Area Breakers. They had like Vivian Glossman, Rachel Rediger, Colin Schick, and
they all got shuffled into new
somebody else.
teams. Yeah,
Well, three of the players got re-signed, and it's like they won every single, like they literally went, they were like the number one seed, and then they got completely new players, and I was like, what, why, like where did the players that just did really well go? And for me, I obviously know the people, so it's like I to be honest don't really cheer for teams, I cheer for people, because I'm
sure.
like, oh, these are my friends,
Yeah,
I know them. But as a any sort of fan, I'm like, well, this is somewhat stressful that I can't follow along with just one team the whole entire season. So that's something where I feel for people, and people are like, "Oh, who's on this team?" And I'm like, I honestly don't know, because they switch it so often that it's like, who
right.
knows?
And what I think is cool is because, and again, back to your point, how partnerships can shift during the year, circumstance. Maybe you committed to a certain partner for a tournament, and you might play with another partner for all the others. We get to see some of these pairings in MLP on these teams that we don't see all the time, and I think that's a lot of
Yeah,
fun too.
yeah,
And you start to say they should team up on tour, and that could cause some damage. And you're starting to see that, right, with Brightbacher. I
yeah.
mean,
Like
Anna
Christian
Brighton,
Alshon and Kwon Bong,
yes,
like they just won, and honestly, had it not been for the Rangers drafting Kwon Bong on like a kind of like a random, they needed a sub, that
you
would have
wouldn't
maybe
know.
never happened. And like, I mean, he's 100% up there in the potential, and so it's yeah, it's nice seeing like a mix of partners.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. All right. Having a lot of fun here. I've got Camila Zilveti with me on the court. It's Pickle with Mickle interview series. Going to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about 11-0 is a sponsor of yours. Let's talk about Pickleball Cowboy, which you helped create, or did you create the whole thing? Talk to me.
So I created all of Pickleball Cowboy as well as 11-0.
Nice.
So this is my paddle brand.
Okay.
So my fiance Brian and I were out in China a few weeks ago, and went to look at all the factories, which is, I could speak of this for maybe
Crazy,
500 hours.
right?
Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. But so this is actually one of the you can't see it over the screen, but this is like, oh, like this should be able to like stick to your shirt, kind of gritty. It's a
Okay.
prototype. So this one can't really play with it, but these are all USA Pickleball approved, and it's been really cool. So both for Pickleball Cowboy. So Pickleball Cowboy, it's just cute hats, mainly hats.
Yeah.
Um,
It looks cute.
and
I think it looks, it's cute. It's cool. I like the hats. I like kind of the look of it.
yeah, I started that 3 years ago. It was like basically when I started playing myself, and I looked online like cute pickleball hats. There was nothing cute, and
Nothing.
I was like, I can make it myself, and I have a good amount of experience like with design stuff, and so I was just like, I'll just make it myself. And then I like posted it on my Instagram, and I had like 300 people be like, "Where
Can
can
I
I get one?" And I was like, "Oh, you guys want one? I'll just throw it on a website." And then it has just like kind of like snowballed. I did a bazillion giveaways on Pickleball Cowboy with a bunch of pickleball brands. Since
Okay.
as a pickleball paddle brand, who can you really partner up with for giveaways? Not really other paddle brands. So that's like that weird little
Right.
niche where they were super happy to like partner up with another pickleball brand that wasn't another paddle brand, because that's like their direct competitor.
Right.
So that was really great. And that has just like grown. And then as the whole paddle sponsorship, so I was at some point I had signed with Carbon, and then I was playing with Franklin, and the whole paddle system, it's like something that I didn't even expect regarding sponsorships. It's just really people basically you have to follow somewhat the money, so obviously. So
Yeah.
who's willing to pay you the most? So given my standing where I am, like in terms of like ranking and performance, big brands like Eula, for example, probably don't want me.
Okay.
Right? So, or if they do, they just give me free paddles or whatever.
Sure.
Which, okay. Or I
No,
can sign
no
with a
travel
crappy brand.
support or anything like that. It might just be a minimal. We're going to throw you some paddles, t-shirts, and a bag.
Yeah. And then but then I had very generous offers from, let's call it ex-tennis brands or
Okay.
tennis brands that are trying to break into pickleball,
Yes.
but their paddles suck. And it's like, I'm already losing. I don't want to take up a new paddle that is a piece of plywood, like I can't do that. Like nobody
It's
knows
the old wooden monarch that you get in the
Yeah. And so looking at all the options, and then Brian has a bunch of experience making products, going to China, manufacturing, and he just loves like tinkering with paddles and everything. And both of us are super, super, super picky on paddles.
Okay.
So we were like, why don't we just make it ourselves? And so all of our paddles are like, they have, so you know how, I don't know if you weigh up your paddles, but most players put lead tape like here.
Yep.
And then the handle.
Yep.
So our biggest thing for all of our paddles, they're pre-weighted.
Okay.
So they come with lead tape like built inside on the throat handle and on the book cap.
Okay.
That was like the biggest thing where I was like, I just can't stand. And then the shape specifically, and I don't know, we have like a bunch of specific, like very, very tiny requirements that probably don't make a lot of sense. Like they're not big enough differentiators where if I said like, oh, we added an extra layer of carbon fiber, it's like, okay, it doesn't really say anything to you.
Right.
But in performance wise, I have been playing with the same paddle for maybe 2 months now and haven't had one delaminate, which is kind of crazy. Like
that's good.
The only other brand I think that I've had that didn't really delaminate was the Franklins. Like the Franklins, they ran out of grit faster than they delaminated, which is awesome. Like absolutely awesome. And then if you've ever played with a Eula, they're great paddles, but you hit it 3 times and it doesn't pass the test anymore. And it's like, I found that way too stressful of having a paddle that delaminates. Like I need a paddle that passes testing. I don't want to take, it's funny. You see all the Eula pros and the Eula reps show up with like a suitcase of like 50 paddles. And they're like, here, try these 3 and see if these pass, like.
I hear that it's not uncommon that, we might just paint a paddle and then have it out there because it passed and versus the other one that didn't. But I think that's great. And congratulations for getting out there, going over to China. I talked with Matt from Mavericks Pickleball too, and he was recently over in China as well. And similar reaction. He's like, Mickle, you don't even know over there.
Yeah.
And I don't mind with you say, hey, we went over there. This is where we're manufacturing paddles. You get to spec it out. You get to kind of do some collaboration. Like you said, we test everything, make the one you like. Now, the one that you have that almost stuck to your shirt, like you said, have you sent that out to the 6 houses to get it approved, or do we need to do some more tinkering before we send it to have it approved?
So the paddle, everything with the paddles is somewhat in the middle of changing right now in terms of like the approval process and in terms of like the requirements with the whole like new UPA thing. So we're somewhat on hold.
Okay.
However, if you go into paddle testing at a tournament, if your paddle fails for grit, you can just grab sandpaper, sand it down until it passes.
So,
and
at
home,
pause right there.
At
a tournament, and then I want to hear what you wanted to say. But at a tournament, what is the testing setup? How do they test for grit? And
so for grit, I have it somewhere. It's a starette.
Is it like you put a nickel in your tire to make sure the tread's okay?
Let me see if it happens to be in this bag.
Go for it.
Maybe it might be. If not, Brian might have it somewhere. But it's basically just it's called a starette, and it's the same one that I think all tournaments.
Okay.
I don't have it on here.
But it's something that just kind of.
It's like a machine that just hooks onto the paddle, and it's like a tiny little needle, and then you press a button, and the needle just slightly like glides over it to see the
Okay.
connection. And at the tournaments, and they place it like here, then here, then here, then here, then here. And I know, and they have like a like you can look it up online. I think it's like 60, 40, whatever. Some specific numbers that I can't go past.
Okay.
However, we have one of those machines, so technically we can just grab this and sand it down until it passes.
Right.
One of those things where there are a bunch of companies that, I mean, like you saw the EULAs that were sticking to people's shirts. They obviously don't pass USAP testing. Yet people would go grab them, sand them down. And the really interesting thing we learned in China was that every single paddle factory, before they send it to USAP, sand down their paddles before they get them approved. So it's complete. I mean, it's
yeah.
And it's like every single factory is doing it. And I recently spoke to some people in charge a bit more in like the new UPA system. They're like, yeah, we're trying to crack down on it. They're like, we want it. And I think that they're going to incorporate some sort of system where it's more, they can pick up any paddle at a store, and if it's not the exact same paddle, revoke their like
yank it. Yeah.
So I think that's what they're changing it to. So we're somewhat a little bit on hold because if it is the system that it's in place right now, obviously we're going to make max grit and then let people sand it down if they feel like it. And more than anything, it's because, I mean, our paddles, it's like, yeah, we're playing with it because we wanted pro level paddles, but obviously most of the people that are going to be playing with our paddles aren't playing in pro. And it kind of sucks buying an expensive paddle and then having the grit run out within a few months.
Right.
And so we just wanted a little bit with like a little bit extra grit. So even if it's technically not legal in terms of the grit, within a week of playing, whatever, a month of playing with it would be reaches that legal point, or people can sand it down if they want. You know, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's easy to remove grit. It's really hard to add grit. So that was more our take, but we're kind of on hold waiting to hear what happens in terms of the whole UPA and the whole like new system.
I mean, with UPA, USA Pickleball, are we going to see kind of any standardized consolidation from the clans, as I like to call them, and these testing protocols come down? Right? I see you're like, who knows, right? We better.
They allegedly will. A big thing that they are trying to push for is longevity of paddle as one of the specs.
Okay.
So, for example, the EULAs, I mean, those paddles pass, but then you hit 5 balls, they don't pass.
Right.
And it's like, okay, great, you have a brand new paddle. And then it's kind of frustrating seeing them being played with in rec. Like, even like the new, like the mods or whatever, they're like, everybody back when paddles
that's
were,
like, that's the Gen 3 remarketed.
Yeah. Like, back when things were delaminating and people were like, oh, you can't play with a delaminated. Like, people threw big fusses about a delaminated paddle, you know?
Yeah.
And then now it's like nobody seems to care if it's delaminating anymore, but it's like now it's even more illegal. And it's like, great, you had a paddle that passed USAP testing because they didn't play a single paddle with it, like a single ball. I don't know. It's been something where we got some of these other ones. They're prototypes. And I submitted, and I took them for testing at some point, and they passed the testing because I had never hit a ball with it. Those things are a rocket.
Really?
It's like, obviously, I would never play with it because it's not USA Pickleball approved. But technically, had we just been faster about it and had submitted that paddle, it would have passed. And 5 balls in, it's like the sound it makes is insane. Now that I've hit 10 balls with it, it's like it dwells and like I can press it and it's like obviously it doesn't like pass any deflection test.
Right. And there's a big thing. Even me, as you know, as a rec player, weekend warrior, professional dreams, right? Any weekend sports guy. I mean, I can tell the difference when I hear a ball get hit with a paddle. I'm like, whoa, what's in that thing or what's not in it, right? I mean, how separated has it become? But when you bring that back down to the rec level, and so many people are starting to play pickleball, and pickleball is great to play. It's a lot of fun, generational game. You can play with your grandmother, grandfather, your father, and you on one side of it. It's the only sport you can do that. But when I come back to, we want to compete, we want to have a little fun out there, you got to be careful. Somebody just starts whipping this thing around who doesn't have the control of a pro player. And this is where I take it back from the pros to the Joes. If us Joes start getting these rocket launchers in our hand, because I know if I'm playing against you, or if I'm playing up against somebody that has skill and technique and they're coming for power, I know the ball is staying within the confines. They're going to hit the ball where they're hitting the ball. There's not a chance that it might sail up and come at my face and I can't move out of the way. And so I think there's some important things to remember, because we all want to go play pickleball. We want to have the best paddles. I want to play with the paddle, 11-0 paddle too, but I don't want to sit there and start, just not having fun. And so I appreciate the way you kind of shed some light on there in a way that I think a lot of people are going to be able to understand. That's great. Best place to play pickleball in Austin today?
Ooh, that's a really hard one. So I get that question actually a lot. And so I've started making an Instagram series, and every Monday I have posted a video of my favorite courts around Austin. And I think it really, really, really depends on what you're looking for. So Are you looking for free? Are you looking for membership based? Are you looking for indoor? Are you looking for available during peak hours? So since I only play, so it's like funny because I play during business hours. So there's every court is available, every court is free type of thing. But then people ask me who have like jobs, and I'm like, great question. These are the places you can go for free, or these are the ones that are social. I love Sark, it's super social. Pan Am, super social. Those would be like the free ones. And then for the best views for sure, Urban, which is like a downtown, but they're like membership based and they have like a long wait list.
Gotcha.
Another downtownish one is Waterloo, and they have 2 indoor courts and 2 outdoor courts. Love those, absolutely love them.
Okay.
But I think it's also membership based. And then they have a handful of pay to play places that I could not tell you which ones would. I mean, I think it would be more depends on where you live on which courts are the best for you.
Or if you're on the east side or west side, so we're not dodging bullets. Yeah. I mean, funny story there. When they opened Pickleball here in Tempe, and I don't know how many times you've come.
There.
When they opened, I was there.
At the opening where they had the shooting.
Yes, that's where I was going. Yeah.
I was literally there, and we were like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah, welcome to Tempe. Yeah. That's just normal for about 5:15 on a Saturday or whatever day that was down there. It was so hilarious. I had just gotten into my car because we went down for the opening. I rented a court and everything. And I mean, you were there. There were a lot of pickle people there. It was a big deal. And we're leaving, and my buddy's texting me, there's a shooting. I'm like, of course there is.
Yeah, no, we had to evacuate. And I was like, oh, we just evacuated because there's a shooting out here? Like, what?
Yeah. And now they shut it down, which is weird. A lot of still, not so super clear as to why they shut it down. However, we keep moving forward. All right. We're going to get into what I call the speed 'em ups, the fun stuff. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Now, you went to the University of Texas, right?
Yes.
I mean, hook 'em horns, right? You know it.
Oh, yeah.
Texas beats Michigan by how much this weekend?
I could not tell you the last time I watched a college football game.
You went to the University of Texas, Camila.
I know.
You better get me an answer right now. The people are listening.
Did
Texas beats Michigan.
I literally have no idea.
Texas will beat Michigan?
Oh, did they play them, or will they play them?
This weekend. Coming up.
They're going to win 53-12.
There you have it, folks. That is a Longhorn right there. Not only are we going to win, we're going to spank them by 40. You just redeemed yourself into Longhorn Nation for sure. So great job. All right. Do you like donuts?
I do.
Have you been to Round Rock Donuts?
Up north, and so going like up Round Rock, they're ginormous. I know.
Yeah.
It's like you buy one.
Have you had one? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like I was telling you before, part of my show is this part of it, the Pickle with Mickle Interview Series, and then on Mondays and Fridays, the Mickle Pod and Pickle with Mickle. And so I always try to mix in like fun stuff. Like if it's National Donut Day, I'll go do some research on donuts or something like that. And one time it was. And I'm like, Round Rock Donuts, right? The Texas-sized donut. This thing could cover up that pickleball paddle. And
yeah, no, they're this size.
And so awesome. Anytime I get a chance to talk to somebody that's living down in Austin, I'm like, donuts, Round Rock, you've been there. I told Monroe had never been there. He's got to go. Michael Lloyd moved down there. I'm like, you guys got to go get one of these donuts and post a picture of it
Yeah.
on Instagram, for crying out loud. Now, you're also a traveler, which I think is really cool. I had an opportunity growing up to live overseas and do some traveling around Europe. I have not been to
Where did you live?
lived in Italy, and so we lived
Okay.
on the mainland in between Rome and Naples. We got a little naval port over there. My dad was a career naval officer. And then here's the kicker. When I was in high school, we lived off of the northern tip of Sardinia on a little island called La Maddalena. So bummer for me. I had to spend my summers on an island in the Mediterranean and then schlep back over here for high school, during the fall. Oh. But I haven't been to 81 countries.
87.
87. Ah, you moved up on me since I did my research. Where do
I
you
know.
want to go that you haven't been?
So I have a handful of places on my list of like top. Brazil, really high up there.
Brazil.
Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Those three are like my three that I'm like dying to go to.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Tanzania. I think I'll throw Tanzania up there. By now I've been to most of the what's called mainstream ones.
Right. It's time to start.
So, or like the easy to get to ones. And so I'm
It's time to get on the road less
hard.
traveled, right? You and Brian getting out there, just kind of some niche spots, finding your own way. I love it.
This year we were in India. I've been down to India 3 times.
Wow.
And we were in India last year as well. We met some people in a hostel that invited us to their wedding, and so we were like, absolutely. And so
did you have to do the full Indian wedding with? Yeah.
And we were the only non-Indians, like not even just like only white people, non-Indians in over 600 people at the wedding. It was phenomenal. They had fireworks. It was like
a all-day affair, right?
I was like, I want to get married in India. I like pulled all my friends. I'm like, would you show up to India if I got married there? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay.
We had a company, like President's Club or whatever at the Kierland Resort here in Scottsdale. One, it was a bummer for me because I live here and we're like, President's Club in Scottsdale. I'm like, really? Can we go somewhere? But to your point, there was an Indian wedding reception at this resort. Everybody done up to the nines. And then I can't remember the proper, whatever it's called. But I mean, the food, the music, the just the festival of it all. And they were going on all night. And so I imagine like the full wedding probably was an all day affair, but it's amazing. That's super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Last place that you skied and your favorite place to ski. And then I got a follow up for you.
Last place that I skied was Vail.
Nice.
For the past like 5 years, one of my really close friends, his parents have a house there, so we've been like doing like a group trip every.
This is my violin for you.
This last year, I actually was the first year I skipped in like 5 years because since I had just signed my PPA contract, I was nervous. I mean, I knock on wood, but I've never had something happen while skiing. But I was like, this is
I don't want to get injured. Right.
I was like, what if I go get injured like right before I get to start my contract, So this year, like this past year I skipped, but I will probably go this next year because now the fear out of, it's gone there. Favorite place I've skied, probably Andorra, which is like in the country right between France and Spain.
Yes. We skied in the Italian Alps when I was over there. And so skied the Zugspitze. We used to go up into the, now I can't remember which the mountain range is called. Beautiful area around there to be able to ski. How about, now you mentioned you're not that much of a football really fan, but I heard some of the accent come in there. You're bilingual. Are you fluent in German? Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Yeah. My mom's German, my dad's from Chile, and I grew up in Guatemala. Not anything related to either one of my parents. That was purely, they just wanted to live there.
Okay.
So I lived there for 12 years. They lived there for 15. They moved there so my mom could learn Spanish.
Okay.
So and then they just loved it. Like it's such a great country. So I grew up living there, and I went to the German school, and then I went to the American school there.
Awesome.
But so English was my third language. So
okay. So like at home, do we speak Spanish, German, both, whatever we feel like? We just roll?
Now we just all speak basically in English. It's just easier. But basically the first 15 years of my life, my mom would speak to us in German. My dad would speak to us in Spanish. They would speak to each other in English.
Perfect.
And then my brother and I would speak to each other in Spanish. And then depending on what parents spoke to us, we would either reply in German or in Spanish. And so it was basically like depends on who's speaking and what they say. And then most of my parents' friends all either spoke German, English, or Spanish. So it was like a thing where I could just speak in any language and somebody would understand me. And it was like, it just worked.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. You got it covered. And also like with Spanish, German, English, as you travel, I mean, phonetically, you can start to understand a lot of other people too, because of course in Europe, there's just a big kind of blend. I always find it interesting though, as you travel, and just like in America, you go to Spain, Spanish sounds different. The different parts of Spain you go to, just like in Italy, just like in France, just like when you come to America, you go to California, you go to Georgia, you go to Michigan, we all sound different. It's all good. All right. So you mentioned
I lived in Sweden and in the Netherlands, and it's so close to German, both of them, like where it was great because I was like, oh, this is basically just like misspelled German. And
which of those did you like better?
So I was there for different you mean the language or the place?
No, the place.
So I was there for different reasons. In the Netherlands, I lived there for a year. I started my undergrad there, and then I liked it. However, it rained. It rained like no one's business, and I was like, I miss the heat. I was like, I need 110 degrees with no rain. And so I was like, I'm out of here. And then I lived in Stockholm.
Okay.
No rain. Absolutely stunning. I would live there again in a heartbeat. Like
super clean.
Absolutely
right?
Stunning place. Yeah. Super. Everyone is so nice. Like it gets a little bit chilly, but I mean, it was fine. It was honestly like the summer there was stunning. The only con for Stockholm was the darkness in the winter. That was like the only thing where I was like, ooh, I don't know if I could do this like long term.
I left, like I said, I grew up overseas and pretty much on the East Coast. I went to college in North Carolina, came out west, right? Because I had never hardly been out here in the West, but I got to Arizona by way of Montana, where it gets very cold and snowy, and learned that I'd rather go to the snow. It also gets very dark at points during the year and people get cabin fever. So I come down to the desert and here we are. Okay. Favorite snack food?
Quesadillas.
Nice. What's your music?
I don't even know if that's like a snack food, but I probably make one at least once a day.
Love it. You put it, I mean, chicken, cheese, whole deal. What do we got in that quesadilla?
Depends on the day. Depends what we have, but usually just the tortilla on the stove and then just put the cheese on top of it. And then if I'm feeling fancy, I'll add avocado, onions.
Now you're talking.
Any sort of meat. But honestly, half the time I'm like on the go and I'm just like, quick, cheese, let's go.
Yeah. Can Brian cook?
A lot better than I can, so yes.
Hey, that's a bold answer and a big answer. Applause. Brian can cook. It's nothing wrong with a man to take care of his lady by cooking some good food, right?
Yeah, no, like anytime it's like we want like nice food, he's like, don't worry, I'll just do it. And I'm like, oh, what a shame. I don't have to cook. Oh no.
Okay, honey, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, missed opportunity for me.
What's your favorite kind of music? What gets you, or actually, I mean, what's your favorite music, but do you have something that you go to get pumped up before a tournament?
So, depends on the season of my life, I guess, but I would go with reggaeton, like any Spanish music. It's elite. And then to get pumped up, I would say country EDM, which is a very specific thing, like something about just country EDM. It's like just, all like upbeat, but then like with a bit of a faster like EDM beat. So that would be for the tournaments, like for the one I go to.
Right on. What about movies and TV? You got any time for that? What was the last movie you saw?
Ooh, what is the last movie I saw? Couldn't even tell you. I watch movies on the airplane sometimes.
Do you have like one that you watch all the time?
I have my favorite movie for sure is She's the Man with Channing Tatum and Amanda Bynes.
Yes.
Absolute classic. It's hilarious. That would be my favorite movie. And then shows we recently, I have watched some like pretty decent ones recently, but I feel like every time after like Out of Sight, Out of Mind, The Silo was really good.
Yeah. On Apple TV. That's a good one. Yeah.
What was another one? Oh, Young Sheldon. Really funny. Really
you like that one?
Really cute.
All right. I'm with you on She's the Man. Great film. I mean, Amanda Bynes kind of gone. She's taken a few turns in
Yeah,
her career, but
she's on
you
like
know,
totally
we
different
can all
channel right now.
enjoy She's the Man. And so I always like to do this thing. It's my variation on the Who's Coming to Dinner. We're going to call it Who's Coming to Pickle. Now you got two of you. You got you and Brian. Who's on the other side playing pickle with you? This could be anyone, alive, dead, celebrities, teacher, whatever you pick.
I would pick Mumphys and Roger Federer.
Ooh, all right. So two tennis
So it'd be
guys.
like an actual good game, but
Yeah.
Mumphys, like I'm
He's going to
such a
be doing
fan. Like,
backflips. He's going to be diving for balls,
yeah,
right? Federer's coming out to the court in his RF, right? He's going to have to derobe a little bit before he starts playing probably an orchestra over on the side. But it's going to be awesome. I think that's a great
yeah,
pool. Two tennis players that I really enjoy is Monfils and well
yeah.
Federer when he played, of course. All right. Are you a adult beverage person? Are you a wine, beer girl? What kind of flavors do we like?
They have been recently on an espresso martini kick where it's the only thing where if I ever go out to dinner or anything, I'm like, do you guys have espresso martinis? They're like, no. And I'm like, okay, never
All right.
mind.
I'll take an iced tea.
Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, I'll just stick to water. Um I don't drink anything like sparkling. Besides, I guess beers are okay, but like sparkling water, like absolutely not. Like Brian, like only drinks sparkling water. But for me, just regular water. And then honestly, the more I play pickleball, the less I drink
Okay.
because it makes me just slower. It just slows down.
Other
Like
than
yeah,
water hydrating,
yeah.
or even during the deal, you're not really hydrating
No,
up. You're just
there's
playing.
like if I have like a tournament within like the next 2 weeks, it's like I'm not having any alcohol. It's like
Yeah.
it, yeah, it just messes with I don't know the timing of things. Who knows?
Sure.
But so I would say espresso martinis though. Those, yeah.
Gotcha. I got you
The
there.
best one, if you're ever down in Austin, Electric Shuffle down the street on Rainy Street, incredible.
Free plug for Electric Shuffle and their espresso martinis, folks. All right. Get you out of here real quick. Who was your high school celebrity crush?
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum, right there. All right. Are we
Hence
still
the
crushing
whole
on?
She's the Man movie, you know?
Is it? Are we still crushing on Channing Tatum? Do we have a current celebrity crush? We got Brian. Is that good enough?
Current celebrity crush. I would say no current. I would say Channing Tatum's the only celebrity crush I feel like I've ever had.
Right on. Snakes or spiders? What's going to send you running?
That's a good question. I'm gonna go with spiders.
I don't like
Yeah.
either. Did I
Yeah, I like
see?
either, but
Now we
I don't know.
talked
I feel like
about.
the spiders are just like smaller and like deadlier in a way versus like the snakes. I don't know. I
Plus
feel like
they
it's like
they
bigger.
you know
So
they
like
crawl around and all their legs
yeah,
move. A snake's just slithering by you or something. It's like fine, get out of here. Now
yeah.
we talked about your skiing and you're an avid skier. You like to ski. Did I happen to see potentially, possibly a picture on social media with you strapped into a snowboard?
It was not me. It was my friend Millen.
All right.
Uh, yeah, it was my. Actually, we literally hold 1 second.
Okay.
We even have the photo framed of him on the ski slopes that
Oh
we just hung
no.
up here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ah,
it was his first time skiing, or it was not his first. He said he knew how to ski, and then he was trying snowboarding. And we went on a very easy hill, and
yeah.
that man could not go on a flat surface for more than 20 meters and just fall and fall. It was so funny, but so funny. And eventually he's just out there like puking. And like, you barely. And he was like, am I close to the bottom? We're like, absolutely not. And so he just got burritoed all the way down.
That is great. There's no better way to walk off the court than a fantastic story like that. It's been my absolute pleasure having you here with me, Camila Zilveti, joining me on the court. Her next stop, folks, is going to be in Vegas next week at the PPA Atlanta Vizzy Cup. There's always a lot of names with these tournaments now, but I think I got most of them. The only name you need to look for is hers. Try to see if you can watch her play. Check out, we've got pickleballcowboy.com, 110.com, or is it 11 pickleball?
11-0 sports.
11 sports.com.
11-0sports.com.
You can find paddles at Pickleball Cowboy, cool hats and stuff, but also there on 11 supplements. What else?
Cupping devices, hydrogen water bottles, smelling salts, But mainly paddles. That's like our primary focus.
Yeah.
The other ones are mainly.
I thought it
like
was interesting to see the cupping devices there. And so I think that's a little diversification, a little separator for you, because a lot of paddle companies aren't throwing cupping devices on their website too. So I say bravo and keep it going. As I let you get out of here, anything you want to plug before you get on with the rest of your week?
Anybody out here, just keep listening to this podcast because it's really awesome. So
hey, I appreciate that. Follow Camila out there on the socials. You can find her easy. She's got some great pictures of everywhere she travels. It's really cool. Pickleball bringing us together. Fastest growing sport. Great sport. I always say a true connector. Thank you again so much. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Danka. Gracias. Camila, that was awesome. All the best in Atlanta next week. Much success in everything you do. Stay safe out there. Stay hydrated. I'll see y'all right here next time for more